Hey, have you ever met anybody like from a different country or a different region, or even just a different occupation from yourself? And you had a hard time connecting with them or understanding them, or they just seemed kind of weird? Yeah, it happens a lot. It's called a culture, and those are cultural challenges that you were facing there when that happened. So, we're going to talk about that today. And what is a cultural challenge? How does it show up? And how do you deal with it? Because we deal with it every day, whether or not we realize it or not. So, what is a cultural challenge? And I bring this up in the sense of corporate in the work world, right? But it really bleeds right over into the professional. They're kind of the same. So when we talk about cultures, we typically think of like ethnics, cultures, or countries, right? So if a person is from a specific country, they have a specific culture. India comes to mind, China comes to mind, Mexico comes to mind. All these countries have, food is also cultural, and that's one of the things that we identify culture through the most is through food. That's why those come to mind, right? Because these are all countries that have specific food types that we recognize as a culture. So that's an example of culture and how we see culture. Clothing is another culture where we see changes in cultures. Not so much in modern day because of fast fashion, uh, the death of us all, but more because it has something to do with historical fashion, and that was built on the textiles that were available for them at that time. And so when we look at history and cultures, we look a lot at fashions and what they were wearing. So that's kind of when we talk about culture, that's where we sort of initially always go to, right? Um, and that's how we identify with culture. But culture goes way deeper. In modern day, in the last, I'd say 10 years or so, the big buzzwords have been corporate culture. And what that means, what is your corporate culture? We have family cultures now. We have all kinds of different cultures. But what people have not gotten really good at, and what's really important, is how do you identify with a different culture? And how do you work with a different culture? And how do you move through something when you have maybe even conflicting cultures? So I'll start you out with a funny story about way back in the day, and this is probably one of them that you've all run into at some point. Um, Back when I worked for a big freight forwarder broker, we'll leave their name out of this, back in Baltimore, I worked with two other heavy-chested ladies, Emily and Lori, and they called us the six pack because we had six huge boobs, three pair between us. And this was probably about 30 years ago when you could do that shit. If you got tried that now, you would get fired immediately. And I would probably be living off a nice little fat compensation package. But anyway, back in the day, that's how it rolled. And we had a leader who came from our India office, and he would visit us on an annual basis. And he loved to give just Emily, Lori, and I these huge body hugs that were like all parts touching. And we were kind of put off about it because it was weird, but we had been told that it was cultural and that these big body hugs that he only gave to the six pack was just his Indian culture. And that's what they did is they give big body hugs. It took me probably 20 years to figure out that that was all bullshit. But it is kind of a cute story about how culture can be used against you. So anyway, the other ways that we see culture, we can see cultures, regional cultures within a country, North and South, West Coast being kind of our three predominant cultures we have here in the United States. I guess Midwest. We have North, South, Midwest, and West Coast are kind of, I would say, our four big cultures that we have here in the United States. If you disagree with me, drop it in a comment. I'd love to hear. So you can also have cultures within a country. You have regional cultures, and of course, south of France, north of France. We've heard about all that kind of different thing. But you also have cultures within working groups. White collar versus blue collar culture. Very, very different. We also have different cultures based on ages. One culture expects this, another culture expects this. They were raised at a different time, they came in later. You see where I'm going with this? So, culture isn't just about food and clothing and jewelry and where you came from. It really shapes how we communicate, organize, and solve problems. And I'll give you a great example about a Southern culture example. So in the South, a big Southern culture thing, and as you all know, I'm from the South. I grew up in Southern culture. A big thing in Southern, and not all Southern culture is great. We got our bad stuff too. But anyway, we're working on it. In the Southern culture, a big part of Southern culture is helping out a neighbor. Big part of it. When something happens in the South, especially in the country in the South, the cities are just homogenous now, no matter where you are. But in the country in the South, if a tree falls or you have some sort of issue around your home, you get hit by a tornado, some sort of natural disaster, anything really that's a tragedy, they rally around you. Your neighbors, your friends, people you don't even know come to your aid. They bring chainsaws, they bring construction equipment, they bring backhoes, they bring trucks, they bring food, they bring whatever it is that you need to get you through it. And the most magical part about being in the South is that when it's done, they disappear. It's not transactional. It is part of our culture to help someone else without asking for something in return. Give the shirt off our own back is what you'll hear. That is a big Southern culture thing. That does not exist in the other regions of the United States. I will tell you this. Maybe the Midwest has it, maybe. But the West Coast and the North definitely do not have that. If a tree falls down, you better not be blocking somebody else's driveway. That's how it goes in the other parts of the country. That's just how it works. That's our culture. It's just a different example of how different cultures work. Now I want to talk about white collar and blue collar. So see, I'm easing y'all into this really difficult conversation because it is a very difficult conversation. And I know about these different cultures and how to work within these different cultures because I do it every day. And in fact, I'm doing it right now, which is why I want to talk to you guys about it because it's very fresh in my head. So as you guys know, I'm working with an oyster company, right? Been around for 135 years. The owner is in his mid to late 70s. All blue collar work. They don't even have a website. They didn't even have a logo or a brand. So from a culture perspective, this is where I'm going with this. None of that is bad. It's just how they evolved. They're highly successful. It's just how they evolved, but it's the culture that I want to talk about. The culture, a non-digital native culture, 135-year-old company, an actively involved mid 70s owner. It's crazy town. I'm just going to tell you it's crazy town because as you all know, I am all digital all the time, moving fast, done it, been there. Let's go make a couple $1 billion before lunch kind of person. My dear owner is not. And so we're having some cultural issues. Some of this is white collar versus blue collar. The oyster business is very blue collar. It's manufacturing, it's agriculture, it's aquaculture. It is manufacturing or processing. And it's very blue collar work. There's not much digital about it. I'm going to be totally honest with you. Could it be more digital? I don't know. That's not my specialty. I just sell shit and make it and get it where it needs to go. But I don't know. Maybe it could. I know he's had some plans to make it more digital, but it's a very manual blue collar industry. I love it. I love that industry. I love tactical things. I love fixing things. I love moving something from here to there. This is why I'm so good at supply chain, is because I love making stuff move. I also collect clocks. I don't know if y'all know that. I should probably talk to you about that at some point. I'm a big clock collector because of this. So we're having in this situation, working with my oyster company, we're having some culture clashes. Every day, we're having a culture clash because I want to move really fast. And I've been there and done a lot of this stuff. And I understand the digital world and how it works and how to get comfortable in that space and work in that space because I've been working in it almost my entire career at this point. But my owner, my oyster man, While he is a multi-million dollar business owner, highly successful, biggest grower on the East Coast. We're not talking about some shabby little oyster shack. This man is a businessman. He's one of the most just intelligent and thoughtful people I've ever met. But this digital thing is driving him crazy because he can't touch it and because he can't control it. And this is a man who's used to touching and controlling everything that he does. And now he has to give that up. And so the process has been somewhat frustrating because he wants to check everything over and over and over again. He wants to touch it before he approves it. He wants to look at himself before he says okay. He comes up with ideas at the 11th hour. Maybe we should. I don't know. Could we think about? But that's how he's wired. And there's come point where I've said, I don't know if I can do this because of this culture clash that we're having. Now, I'm not fighting with him about it. I'm not arguing with him about it. This is his business, honey. And if he wants to do it this way, babe, I'm going to make it happen. I am not going to steal this man's joy, but it does give me heartburn because I'm concerned about some things. But I have to work through this culture with him of getting it to where he can understand it and he feels comfortable. So not only are we dealing with a white collar, blue collar, digital, non-digital, we're dealing with an age difference, generational differences. This guy could be my dad. He's in a different era. He does business differently. We don't cut POs. We just call people and tell them we want to order something. Yeah, I know. It's crazy, right? It's all of these pieces that are getting this website and direct to consumer business off the ground and running because of this culture clash. And I'm going to talk to you about how to deal with these culture clashes, but I want to give you a couple more examples of the culture clash and how to deal with it. Because if you can't deal with the culture clash, you can't be successful in supply chain. Because in supply chain, you are working with different cultures all the time. All the time. Okay? Whether it's international, regional, or just this difference between an office worker and a truck driver, a stevedore and a girl who never leaves the office. Two different people, two different cultures. Girl, let me tell you about something that's two different cultures. Way two different cultures. Yeah. So, another great story about the changes in cultures. When I was young and I was working in Baltimore, I had to go to the docks a lot. Now, and speaking of it being a manual thing, this is back when we used to have blue ink on specific delivery orders because they would not take fax copies. So they had to have originals, which meant you had three ways to get an original delivery order to where it needed to be. You could overnight it if you were advanced enough. You could catch the driver and give it to him personally, or you could go to the pier, which was my least favorite option, but often what I ended up doing. Going to the pier was a different world from coming from my cushy little office building that I worked in that was clean and had a nice little restaurant downstairs and where you could go get a cup of coffee and, some lunch. And everybody wore dresses and back then we wore a lot of pantyhose still. I think those are coming back. But it was a different world. The pier, the docks, were stevedores and truckers and grit and diesel and a lot of big metal boxes and dangerous shit moving all the time. Two different cultures. The first time I went to the piers, I went from the office and I dressed like I was in the office. And not only was it exceptionally uncomfortable not being dressed appropriately for being at the piers because I already stick out like a Thor's thumb because I'm a girl. Now I'm a girl in a skirt. No one took me seriously. My shit didn't get done. They gave me shit. They gave me all kinds of shit. Tried to tell me I didn't, like it was a mess. Mess. So the second time I went to the pier, I wore big baggy blue jeans and a big old fat sweatshirt and some sneakers, and I put my hair up in a ball cap, and we had a slightly different experience. They still gave me shit. But not as much. And I went in with a different attitude. I went in with, I'm going to be dealing with stevedores attitude. I changed to match the culture. So let's talk about this. What do you do when you're in a situation where you're like that, when you're dealing with a cultural situation? So I'm going to go back to my owner, this oyster company I'm working on. So what do I have to do? I got to deal with this culture of this guy who wants to check everything 3 times. We're trying to meet a deadline. We're trying to get out before the holidays. We're trying to get the business up and running. We're trying to get boxes in. We're running, and he is just slowing us down. Number one, he doesn't understand. It's not his culture. He wasn't raised in this. He's been working in this for 30 years. He doesn't understand it. So number one, recognize that they don't understand. They don't know your terms. You're in your culture. Your culture is different for them too. You are also different. You are not the litmus. You are also different. So they don't understand your terms. They don't understand your words. They don't understand the processes that you use because they're not in your culture. So the number one thing that you can do is identify what it is about the person you're working with, what it is about the culture that you're interacting with that is different from your own. And in this situation, it is that he is not digitally native and he has never had an e-commerce company. So he doesn't understand how all these intricacies work. And because he doesn't understand it, it makes him nervous. And because it makes him nervous, he doesn't want to move too fast. So we slow it down. It's okay if we're not going to get ready by the holidays. I would like for us to be ready I want to be ready by the holidays. I think it's important for us to be ready by the holidays. But if it's causing my owner distress, if it is causing him to be upset, if it's causing him to lose joy in this project that should be ultimately very joyful for him, then I am not honoring him. I am not meeting him where he is. And when you want to work through these cultural differences, that is the number one thing. You've got to meet him where he is. You have to understand that you're dealing with a different culture and you have to understand what it is that's different. Meet them where they are. That is the number one thing you have to do when you're dealing with a cultural difference. White collar to blue collar. Are you using different language? The plumber cannot talk to the lawyer. The lawyer does not understand what an elbow joint is. They don't understand what plumber's glue is. They don't understand PVC versus lead pipes. You can't talk to the lawyer like that. He's not going to get it. You got to talk to the lawyer in terms that he understands. The pipes in your house are toxic because they are made of lead. They don't understand lead pipes. You can't talk to lawyers like that. Meet them where they are. Use their language. Number two, use their language. Even if that's a logistics language, that's where I learned to cuss like a motherfucker. Do it. Example of speaking to a lawyer. You're a plumber. You're trying to explain to a lawyer why it's going to cost so much money to fix his plumbing. You got to tell him. He doesn't understand. And vice versa. You're not going to understand what the lawyer's talking about, some freaking subpoena and defense trials. You don't know. He has to explain that to you. You have to use terms and explain the processes to the people that are not in the culture. Even when you're working on the same thing. In my case with my oyster owner, we're working on the same damn thing. But we have all these different cultural differences that make it a challenge. He's not inept, incapable. He's highly intelligent, running a massively successful business that his company has run for 135 years. We're just coming at it from two different directions, two different cultures. My corporate culture, my professional culture is corporate. Amazon, do it fast, do it scrappy, get it out there, customer first. He comes from a different culture. Growing oysters takes time. It's diligent. It takes attention to detail. It takes patience. It takes getting it right the first time. Two different cultures, two different ways of thinking about something. So what do I have to do? First of all, he's paying me, so I have to make him happy. That's my job. Get it done and make him happy. But the biggest thing I do for him is I match his speed. Yep. Even if it's not my speed, even if I think we should be running 100 miles faster than we are right now, I match his speed. And his speed changes, by the way. Speed on Tuesday is whole different than speed on Monday. Friday speed, the speed changes the hour of the day for him. The priority shifts. But what I do is I give him the space and let him do it the way he wants with big guardrails, keeping him moving in the right direction. But I don't try to control him. I help him understand my culture, the digital culture, what these things he wants to do mean. Yeah, I explain to him. I take patience and I make sure that he understands, and then I honor what he wants, even if it's bad, even if it's not what I would do. I honor it. But the biggest piece is honoring his culture and matching his speed and speaking his language. That is what has allowed us to continue to work together. If you want to be able to work with all kinds of different people from all over the world, in all kinds of age groups, in all kinds of industries, you have to learn to understand culture. And you have to be flexible and honor their culture. I want to take 1 minute before I sign off with you guys about fighting someone's culture, because I have seen this and it does not work out. If you decide to take it upon yourself that you want to fight that culture for whatever reason, now I understand there's personal things and you don't want to do business with someone because of some personal aspects of their culture. Like, I totally get that. I am not asking you not to do that. Okay. But in this example of my oyster owner, if I had continued, because I kind of was, that's how I caught myself. If I had continued to force my culture, my way of doing things down his throat, if I continued to just stand on his head and be like, no, we have to meet the date, like da 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 da. If I had done that to him, nothing would have changed. Absolutely nothing would have changed. And I'm telling you this with high confidence because I've done it. Nothing will, the outcome will not change if you do that. If you do not honor their culture and you fight it, the outcome will not change. But the journey getting there will be drastically different. And whether or not you're part of that team long term will change. Because if you fight it, if you try to cram your point of view, your culture down their throat every step of the way, you're going to build resentment. You're still going to get it done, but they're going to resent you for it. And when you finally accomplish that task, they're not going to ask you back, and you may not be part of the team moving forward. So just in recap, culture exists everywhere. It's just not about food and clothing, y'all, and jewelry. Because you know that we love some of that jewelry. Ooh, can't get on that right now. All right. So identify that there is a cultural difference. What is going on? Is it about speed? Is it about how you handle yourself? Is how you speak to someone? Do you handshake or not handshake? What is it about the cultural difference that's making a problem? Identify it. Meet the other person where they are. You do not drag them into your culture and make them comply with you. Meet them where they are. Use terms that they understand. Work together. If you do that, if you respect their culture, honor their culture, speak to them in a language that they understand, life will get 1,000% better for you. I promise. Your supply chain will move so much faster if you do this. Culture makes all the difference in the world. All right. Peace out, y'all.